sessions on contemporary literatures and translation study. Our topic is Why Comparative Indian Literature by Sisir Kumar Das, presented by me and Niyati Vyas. Table of contents about the author. Second is the comparative Indian literature. Third is comparative Indian literatures by Amyadev and citation. About the author, Sisir Kumar Das, 1936 to 2003, was a poet, playwright, translator, comparatist, and prolific scholars of Indian literature. He is considered by many as the dawn of Indian literature's historiographers almost single-handed thus builds and integrated history of Indian literatures, composed in many languages, a task that had seems to many important scholars of Indian literatures to be a historian's despair. His three volumes, among proposed and volume, A History of Indian Literature's Western's Impact, Indian Response, 1800 to 1910, Struggles for Freedom, Dreams and Tragedy, 1911 to 1956, from Courtly of Populars 500 and 1399 is credited of having devised methods of exercise methods necessary for situating deserves Indian literature's culture in history. Apart from his another's uh, monumental work in das scholarly is the multi-volume English writings of Rabindranath Tagore, edited by him. Despite his formal traditions in Bengal language and literature, Das was amongst the few who were instruments in shaping the disciplines of comparative literatures in India. Das once remarked they have been trying to say his that compartmentalized literary education should be immediately done away with for a long time. Whether study of literatures of readings of literatures, call it whatever would remains incomplete if not approach comparative. It is like that old saying, what does he know of English who only English know? Uh, the literatures department have irritates walls between literatures. New thought would start belonging only where this whole are started down. Um, Comparative literature is the comparisons of literary work from more than one linguistic traditions, and therefore, in order to make such a comparisons, a researcher must take a transactions and transcultural approach of analysis. Now, I would like to call Neil.
Comparative Indian literature by Sisir. In the beginning of the century, some of the scholars tried about the idea of an Indian literature, emphasizing the unity of themes and forms and attitudes between the different literatures produced in different Indian languages during the last 3,000 years. It discovers the essential threads of unity into a uh, multilingual and multi-religious culture. Coming back to the nature of comparative literature as thought in India, the epigraph by Sisir Kumar Das states the Unlike India, which has a history of literary traditions between script and orature, new methods of teaching and reading were to be invisible. While dealing with the formal elements that go into the making of any text in India, which shares a similarity with African situations in terms of oral, written, and indigenous sources. Identification of these methods as contours which aid in the reading of literature would apply. When speaking of literatures in the plural, the succeeding questions point towards the direction in which these literatures tend to inhabit a geopolitical location, otherwise termed a country which is demarcated by boundaries, social, religious, and linguistic. When reading any text, the value loaded term national, international, and indigenous prop up any student pursuing literature. Subdivisions, generic differences may occur, but identifying these differences and reading them as contours instead of straight lines is what comparative literature sets out to engage with. While questioning the idea of an Indian literature, he highlights the notion one attaches to the word Indian, which could in itself be a pluralistic outlook of life, wherein the concept of Indian literature as inherently comparative may be considered. According to Das, the necessity of evolving a framework when two distinct languages or cultures encountered was inevitable. Das states in this regard Arabic, Japanese with Chinese, and Indians with the literatures of Europe. All these contexts have resulted in certain changes, at times marginal, and at times quite profound and pervasive in the literary activities of the people involved, and have necessitated an enlargement of critical perspective. Das states how Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of India, in his introduction of Charles Wilkins' translation of Gita, advocated for a comparative study of the Gita and great European literature. I should not fear, he wrote, to place in opposition to the best French version of the most admired passages of Iliad and Odysseus, or the first and sixth books of our own Milton, highly as I venerate the latter, the English translation of the Mahabharata. Translation brought world renown to a number of regional writers. In the task of the translator, Walter Benjamin argues that translation does not conceal the original but allows it to shine through. For translation effectively ensures the survival of the text. Here, Das asserted how Indian scholars in the ancient period did not endeavor to explore such connections between the two languages. Das has a clear insight into this phenomenon that may be not owing to myopic or tendencies and the lack of a framework to place literatures from two linguistic roots. Das forgets to mention that were not appropriate frameworks to study identity politics that went beyond the frontiers of language in a country strongly informed by caste hierarchy and subjugation of women and the suppression of the LGBT. And even when literature shifted from nation basis to identity basis, it happened outside the discipline of comparative literature. And here I will like to call Stuti for anything comparative literature in India by Kumar.
Comparative literatures in Indian by Amyadev. In his article Comparative Literatures in Indian, Amyadev based his discussions on the fact that India has many language and literatures, thus representing. No, sir. Yes, sir. India has many language and literature, thus representing and priori situations and conditions of deserting. He therefore argued that the speak of an Indian literatures in the singulars problematic. Nonetheless, Sisir Kumar Das also observed that to speak of Indian literatures in the plural is equally problematic. Such a characterizations, he argued, either overlook of obscure interlocutions and his articles compare the unity and the diversity. This is identify the relationship between Indians community and difference as the prime site of comparative literatures in India. They also examine the research for common dominations and possible patterns of togetherness, and they underlines the locations and located Indian receptions as an aspect of inter interliterariness. It is Hardev perceives Indian literature that is not as a fixed or determines entire but as an ongoing and interliterary process. Indian language and literatures even in are making.